First of all, I cannot believe that I am here, finally doing this, but here we are. We are here. Sanbonani, and welcome to the Mommy Issues podcast, where we say everything your inner child's been dying to scream. I'm your host, Muki M, and I invite you to grab your tissues or your rage because it's time to heal out loud, sweetie. Oh my goodness, I've been dying to finally say that in front of the camera. Guys, welcome to my podcast, okay? Firstly, shout out to me for this setup. It was a lot of work. And shout out to everybody who had reached out to me when I started sharing my mommy issues on TikTok, and they started sharing their own, and then that led to me creating a support group on WhatsApp where we basically share our struggles with our mothers, whether some of us are still living with our mothers or whether some of us are still in contact with our mothers and are somehow affected by the relationship that we have with our mothers. Now, this podcast for me means a lot because I'm finally getting to share everything that I've been dying to say, everything that has happened to me in childhood, even in early adulthood, and basically to just share for awareness. Now, I want to disclaim that this podcast is not for me to come on here, shit on my mother or shit on anybody's mom. No, I am here to basically tell my story the way that it happened to me, and also to help everybody who is watching and who is possibly going through the same thing heal their mother wound. Those of you who know me know that I've tried this before, and it was a series. It wasn't a podcast. Thank God for the world of podcasts now. I can finally turn this into something meaningful and something that people can listen to, whether they're on their way to work, from work, doing anything that just needs something to listen to. This right here is it. So this podcast is basically about healing your mother wound, especially the Black female mother wound, because mother wounds are very different and they come in all shapes and sizes. This is simply to just heal, to educate, and to help other women realize their own patterns or relationships with their mothers, and realize their own mother wound and heal it along with me on this journey. Let's get into the why I'm finally doing the podcast. So those of you who know me know that I have tried this before, and it was a series called Daughters of Narcissistic Moms. And back then when I did do the series, I was still unhealed. I hadn't gone through any therapy, and I was basically just doing it from a place of hurt. I was sharing my stories, but in between sharing my stories, I did receive so much backlash, so much backlash. And besides that, I feel like I always knew that I would always return into doing it. But at a later stage where I've now healed, I'm more informed on my trauma and my wound. And I can now assist other people as well, or other women as well, on healing their mother wound. So here we are, 27 years old, which is basically 3 years later. And we are doing this again, and properly this time, with the proper resources and the proper information. Basically, that's what I can say. So if you or anybody you know is going through a really rocky relationship with their mom, or they've had a really rocky relationship with their mother from birth or from when they were really young, this podcast is for you. And thank you so much for tuning in. So I will start by saying that I am the eldest daughter of 4 children. We were raised by our mother. Well, let me literally just speak on me for now, for time being. I was raised by my mother, but first I was raised by my grandmother. And then when I was 7 years old, I moved to South Africa to live with my mother. And mind you, I am South African. My father is South African. So I am South African, but I'm also Swazi or Swati. And moving to live with my mom was such a difficult transition, because now I'm going from being the baby, because I was my grandmother's first grandchild, and I was the youngest at home. So I was like the baby, and I used to just get treated that way, like a child, because I was a child, to just being around somebody whose mood you couldn't predict. And I grew up afraid of her because of that. I had to walk on eggshells around my mom because I never really could predict her mood, and she would just snap. She would occasionally just snap, and sometimes her snapping would end up in physical altercations, not even altercations, where she would beat the shit out of me. So, sweetie, it was not cute at all. And when I moved here, it was just me and her until then. In 2007, my sister moved in with us. My mom finally got like my sister to come live with us, and then it was the three of us living together. And a year later, she then had another child with somebody else. So we were three children growing up for the most time. And then when I was in university in my final year, she then had my little brother, my youngest sibling. And growing up in a home like that, I was parentified, of course, as an eldest daughter. Every African eldest daughter knows this. The parentification, you are basically the deputy parent of your siblings, and you never really get to be a child because you are dressed with this responsibility of your siblings, which is very crazy because then you'd never get to do things that you should be doing as a child. You never get to be really fully carefree and live your life, you know? But yeah, so with that being said, those dynamics, being raised in an environment like that, definitely affected me a lot. It affected the way that I trust myself, the way that I made decisions and choices in my life, because I was always operating from a place of survival and fear, and a lack of self-trust, of course, self-doubt, because you don't trust yourself enough to make your own decisions. You're afraid of making mistakes, because if you make a mistake, you are punished for it. Those of you who have a mom like this definitely know what I'm talking about. Now, what is a narcissistic mom? That is actually the topic of the day. What is a narcissistic mother? Okay, so there are different kinds of narcissistic moms. Basically, getting into it, I want you to know that having a narcissistic mom is not a one size fits all. Okay, there are different kinds, and some are not as hectic as others. So let's get into them, because I did actually do some research for you, because I am trying to make sure that I get you guys the most accurate information. So going into the types of narcissistic mothers, this one is the controlling mother, or the queen. She sees her children as an extension of herself, controls their choices, appearance, friendships, and career, decides everything for their own good, but erases their autonomy, can be the authoritarian and perfectionist. Typical phrase, "You'll thank me one day." Okay, and then the next one is the victim. This is the mother who uses suffering as a form of manipulation, pretends to be fragile to attract sympathy and guilt. She gets easily offended and creates drama to become the center of attention, makes the child feel guilty for everything they do or don't do. Typical, "After everything I've done for you." That's a typical phrase. We all know a mother like this, or someone who knows a mother like this. And sometimes these type of mothers can be an all-in-one. Okay, so the next one is the competitive mother. This one sees her children as rivals, especially daughters. Oh, honey. She just touched a nerve with this. Feels jealousy of their youth, beauty, or achievements. May secretly sabotage them while pretending to support. Uses comparisons to belittle and create insecurity. Typical phrase, "At your age, I was way better." We all know a mother like this, or somebody who has a mother like this. The glamorous mother. Maintains a perfect image in public, charms everyone but is cold or cruel at home, uses her children to uphold social appearances. No one believes the child when they speak out, because they always have this public appearance of, "Oh, she's such a good person. Your mother would never. You are lying. Inkinga wena lana unamanga. Oh, mawakhulunge kabi lo mntwana nje ukhohlakele." We all know a mother like that, or somebody who has a mother like that. And the typical phrase is, "Don't make a scene. People are watching." Okay? If this could be you and your mother's relationship, child, you are on the right show. Keep watching, keep listening. The inverted, or daughter of her daughter. Now, I think this is the saddest one to have, because having your parent become the child and then the roles are reversed and you have to be their parent is draining as hell. You don't get to be a child, and then when you grow up, you don't want children, and you're always in a mode where you just like, I never got to do this as a child, so I'm doing it. So it's like you grow backwards because you never got a chance to be a child when you were a child. And then it says, acts like the child in the relationship, expects the daughter to care for her, console and support her, creates a role reversal, parentification, makes the child feel responsible for her happiness. Typical phrase, you're all I have. Okay? It's similar to the victim, very similar to the victim. Okay, the absent mother. Cold, indifferent, emotionally neglectful, shows no interest in her children's emotional life, only appears when there's something to gain, may use silence as punishment. Typical phrase, none, silence is her weapon. These are the mothers that give you silent treatments, basically. The ones that are just emotionally cold and detached. They don't give a shit. They don't care. Like, you could go no contact and they wouldn't give a shit. They wouldn't call you. They wouldn't give one flying F in the world because you left, and I don't have to deal with the mess of why you left, even though it is my fault. All right. So basically, now that we've gotten into the different types of narcissistic moms, I want you to carefully think about what I've just read, and then you analyze your relationship with your mom. That's if you believe that you have a toxic or a narcissistic mom. And remember that since this is a spectrum, sometimes your mother can be all of these, the above mentioned, or she can be somebody with more than just one of these personality traits or personality characters. So with that being said, I would like to now read you the definition of a mother wound so that we can define whether or not you have one. The mother wound refers to emotional or psychological trauma resulting from a problematic or absent mother-child relationship. So it is not a clinical diagnosis, but rather a concept describing how a lack of nurturing, emotional availability, or even outright neglect from a mother figure can negatively impact a child's development and later life. This can manifest as difficulties in relationships, low self-esteem, and other mental health challenges. Right. Now that we know what it is, I would like you to take a moment to pause and then to determine whether or not you have a mother wound. But as for me, I know that I do, and I know that I'm actively healing it each and every day. And that is the whole purpose of today's podcast episode. I am here to educate, to help others heal, and to also heal myself in the process of sharing about my mother wound and many other things going forward. Let me get into the not so many, but the key details into my relationship with my mother and why I believe that I do have a mother wound today, and also share with you guys how I've navigated my healing and my mother wound healing specifically, and how it has affected different areas of my life. So, getting back to the story of having 3 other siblings and being the oldest child and coming to live with my mom. When I started living with my mother, things were very different than when I was living with my grandmother. I saw so many behaviors from living with her that I used to question a lot, like, this must not be right. And also just being so super scared of her. We never used to talk because every time she spoke to me, it was always shouting at me. And I don't think she actually learned herself how to speak to me as her child. And I also want to point out this one key thing that I do believe is another key reason why I never felt a bond with my mother. So, she had me when she was still in university, and then she went back to school briefly after giving birth. And I never really was breastfed. I only was breastfed for 2 weeks, according to what I was told by my grandmother when I was growing up. And I was just breastfed for a short time, probably, from what I heard, 2 weeks, and then she went back to school. And obviously, when she was at school, I was then with my grandmother, and I think that's where the bonding happened because I was still in my bonding phase. I'm an infant. I need to latch onto someone and then identify that person and that relationship with that person as, oh, this is my caregiver, then this must be my mother. Do you understand? As humans, we are wired for connection. That's just how we are wired. And as a child, I can only imagine how that could have affected me at that time. So with that being said, I was then living with my grandmother, and I never got to see my mother very often. And when I did get to see her, I think I was very young. Yeah, I never got to see my mother that often. And when I did get to see her, from as early as I can remember, it was for a short time. And for as early as I can remember, I then had a sibling, which was my sister. So I never really got to be her baby and just be her only child. And for as far as I remember, when my sibling came into the picture, I always remember feeling like my mother used to prefer my sister over me a lot, especially even when we were kids. I used to feel this from when we were like very young because she would sleep with her. I would still sleep with my grandmother even when she was there. My sister had a very attached style to my mom. Like she was very clingy to my mother and she would cling on to her and she wouldn't want to share her, forgetting that she's not our mother's only child. And my mother would obviously like be more attentive to her because of that, and she would give her that attention. But when I acted like that, my mother would shout and she would be so irritable and irritated, which made me feel unwanted as a child. And most of you might hear this and then wonder, maybe the way your mom got you was maybe your mom didn't get you in the right way. Maybe you were conceived off of, violence, but that's not the truth at all. And some may even say, maybe your mom was just angry at your dad, or maybe your mom didn't like your dad, or your dad probably hurt your mom, so she projected that hurt onto you. Yes, that could be a possibility, and that could be half true. But as the story progresses into my later stages of life, I realized that it's more than just pain from my father that the reason my mother treated me this way. It was just a very complex personality disorder that I realized later on in life, literally in my final year of university, when I realized that, oh, this is what it is. Because I thought she would get better with age. I thought she would get better as I get older. She would be more understanding and more open to have a relationship with me. And she would know how to talk to me better and speak to me better and not speak to me like trash or violently. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, the dynamics of our relationship was just it didn't stand a chance from way in the beginning. And with that being said, I used to watch her prefer my sister over me a lot, and she never really gave me the validation and the love that I needed from her. And even when it was just me and her without my sister in the picture, because my sister also lived with her grandmother, which was her dad's mom, and I lived with my mom's mom. And when it used to be me and just my mom, I would not say a word at all. And then I would overhear conversations where she tells everybody in the family that, oh, she's so quiet, she doesn't speak much. And everyone would be like, yo, you don't know her. When she's around us, she talks a lot. She said this, she said that. And, they'd laugh and giggle about it. But when I was around her, I was so uncomfortable already because I didn't know this person. I didn't know this woman. It felt like I was with a stranger. But because everybody kept telling me, Nang Magwako, this is your mom, this is your mom, it just felt like I should naturally gravitate towards her. And to the point where I didn't know how to call her Magi or Mami or Mom. I just used to, when my grandmother would say, I'll go call your mother for me. Tell her I want her to come help me with something. I would literally go to where my mother is and I would go tap her and then tell her, grandmother is calling you, she needs your help. I wouldn't say mommy or mom, mama. No, I did not know how to do that. That is how unattached to my mother I was. I knew Gogo as my mom, and I used to say Gogo a lot. I just didn't even have mom in my vocabulary, or dad either, because also we'll get into my dad another day, but with that being said, I only started calling her mommy, which is what we used to call her mommy, when my sister, the one who is now clingy and attached to my mom, would come over to my granny's house, and then she would be like, mommy, mommy, mommy. And then I was like, oh, that's what we call her. So for as long as I remember, my sister was my mother's child, and my sister was like the one who was more preferred when it came to my mother's love. And I always, from a long time ago, always felt like my mother didn't love me, or love me as much. You know what I'm saying? And as a child, that hurt because I was still young. I had a very soft spirit. You know, children are very fragile, and it was so disheartening seeing um, that, oh, this person that everybody says is my mom is not really acting like my mom, and I don't know what to do with this, and I'm just a child. Why doesn't she love me like she loves my sister? How come my sister gets everything she wants and needs from her, but and I remember realizing that, oh, my mom doesn't like me, because there was a moment where, now we were a bit old. I think we were like 5 and 6. I was 6, my sister was 5, and then we came back from visiting my sister's grandma. So one time, like, because my sister's grandma knew that my sister had another sibling, which was me. So sometimes she would have us both come visit her. Like, my sister used to stay with her grandmother, but she would have me come visit and then be around my sister and be around her. So my sister and I, starting from like our early childhood stages, we didn't really get along very well, because I felt like she was a crybaby, and she was always such a tattletale, and she always used to fight over mom. Even though she got to sleep with mom and do everything with mom, when it was my time to like be clingy and want to be like sitting next to my mom as well, she wouldn't want to share. And I realized that I had no winning grounds, because my mom would support that. And when I would try, like, now she's arguing with me, or my sister's like pushing me off and I'm pushing her back, like, this is my mom too. My mom would like intercept the situation in a way that she's favoring my sister, and then I would go and cry, and literally, oh my god, my voice is breaking. I think I'm about to cry, y'all. Oh my god, we really need tissue. But I'm just like, I'm picturing a time. Whew, this is hard. I'm picturing a time, because I was really young, where we were playing, and I think my sister and I were fighting over a specific toy. And then, like, my mom noticed the fight, but then she took my sister's side, and the things that, like, the way she took it, like, she was very rough with me. And then we both ended up crying, and then she was like comforting my sister, and she didn't comfort me. And then I went to my grandma. Damn. Now I'm regretting this podcast all over. But I went to my grandma, and um that's like the time when it really got embedded in my mind that, oh, my mom doesn't like me, she likes my sister more. And then, going back to the story I was telling before, but thank god my granny was there, because she then comforted me, and she told me that this is my home, they can go back to where they're coming from. This is my home, nobody's gonna come and disturb her child in her home, because that was my home. And when we were fighting over that, I just felt like she was always so pushy when it came to me, and she always favored my sister, and my sister was always fighting with me, because she felt like my mom as well, our mom was just her mom. And going back to the story I was telling, that I came back from visiting my sister's grandma. When my sister and I used to go visit her grandma as kids, we came back together to now our mom's grandma, and it was, now we were a bit older, so even the fights were not as bad anymore. They were just like subtle, small little arguments, but we would get them resolved without having to involve our mom as much. And we were like getting better. Our relationship was getting a bit better at that stage. And I remember going to my grandmother's room, and I think they had sent us to go get something in my grandmother's room and then return it. And then I went in there, and then I just like sat on my grandmother's bed for a while, and then I was just thinking and realizing how my mom didn't treat me as well as she treated my sister at that time. And my sister found me. She followed me after a while because she saw I wasn't returning to the living room, and she found me sitting on the bed and crying on my grandma's bed. And then she was like, "What's wrong? Why are you crying?" And the weird part is that if she does listen to this, she does remember that moment, my sister, because we spoke about it when we were like in university, and we spoke about it and we cried about it. I cried, obviously. I broke first, and then she cried with me. She was like, "Please don't cry because you're gonna make me cry," because she remembered that moment. And I cried because I was like, "Oh, so you remember it?" And when she remembered it, it wasn't from a place of she was malicious, because she was comforting me in that moment. I was like, she's like, "Why are you crying?" And I'm like, "I'm crying because I'm like, I didn't say realize because I was still young. I didn't even know what the word realize was. Like, I'm crying because mommy doesn't love me. Mommy doesn't love my dad. She loves your dad, and that makes her not love me. And she loves you because she still loves your dad." And then she was like, "No, that's not true. Mommy loves you too, you know." And then I started crying even more. And then she like held me and she was like, "Don't cry." And she was like, shushing me and consoling me. And that's the first time I think my sister and I as kids really made a connection, an emotional one. And then I stopped crying because she comforted me. And then like we had a little hug, and we were still like 5 and 6 years old. And then we went back to the living room because remember we were sent to go get something, and then I wasn't coming back. So she came to check on why I'm not coming back, and she found me distraught. And she was like, "Oh my God, that's not true. Please don't feel that way." Guys, these stories that I'm going to be sharing are charged emotionally. And at first, when I was starting recording, I was just trying my best to be perfect and to do this perfectly. But I don't want that. I want it to be as messy and as real as it can be. This is me. This is raw, real, unfiltered emotions of how a mother can really strain a relationship with her daughter, and how she can really destroy her daughter's self-image from a young age. Children pick these things up. They can see when your mood is shifting. They can see when you treat them differently from their other siblings. They can see when you don't prefer them and when you don't choose them. And they can see when they always have to fight for your love and affection. And that causes such a fucked up self-image, because when they grow up, they don't feel worthy of things. They feel like they have to fight for every single little thing in their lives, including things that are actually their rights. Do you understand? It creates such a fucked up sense of self. Like, oh God, you don't look at yourself in a good way when you are brought up with that type of dynamic. And it's so, it's very guys, it's terrible. It's terrible. It's so destroying, if I may say. And with that being said, remembering that earliest moment and now just like crying about it, damn, we really do need tissues. I hope y'all did grab your tissues like I suggested in the beginning. Our relationship from then onwards, when I started living with her and it was just me and her, me and mom, it was never good. Even then, I was always like fearful of her, because remember, even to call her mommy, I had to hear my sister call her mommy, so that I know that, oh, this is how we address her, and even with that being said, we never spoke much. We only spoke when she was asking me like, oh, where are my things, where's my homework, where are my shoes, or just like basic instructions of living in the house. She never just had a normal conversation with me like, like when you're just conversing with your child, like, what did you do at school today? Oh, what do you like? She never even knew the things that I liked. She would just like hear from my grandmother telling her, would say, oh, your daughter likes this, or your daughter, even when like I was getting into my teenage years, she didn't even know that I liked cooking, or I could cook very well at that point, because I used to like cooking back then. So when I was at my grandmother's and then I was cooking, I was always asking Gogo, please buy this and buy that. I want to cook this. And she would. And then I would cook. And then my grandmother would brag when my mother gets home, like, your child can cook, child. We need to put this baby on MasterChef. I am telling you, she cooked this and that. Like, she would only know about me from what other elders in the family would say about me. And then she had her own definition of me in her head, which was not good at all. In my mother's head, I was just labeled as that problematic child, that naughty child, and worst of all, the dumb child. She made me think I was stupid and dumb my whole life. It was when I got to university and I started acing shit that I realized, oh my God, I'm smart. In my first test in university for my main course, which was geography, I scored the highest in the class. I scored that, I will always remember that 92%. I scored the highest in the class. And I was like, so how am I stupid again? How am I dumb again? Because my mom always made me feel like my academic abilities were limited and my sisters were always there. And mind you, my sister was scoring higher marks than me in high school. She was getting higher marks than me. And my academic life was affected by my trauma because my whole nervous system was dysregulated growing up. I was always scared. I was always fearful to a point that I actually got sick. Like I was studying, I always got sick. Every year I had a stomach bug that they had to take me to the doctor to. So I would just like throw up. I couldn't hold food down in my stomach for a long time. And it used to happen around the ages of, it stopped when I think I was 12 or 13, but from 9 years old, when my sister started living with us, from 9 years old up until 12 and 13, then it stopped. Then I never had those stomach issues again. But my nervous system was always dysregulated to the point that my concentration was low. So when I was at school, my teachers realized this and noticed that she has a very low attention span. And then they kept assessing me, and then they realized that they had to tell my mother. So they told my mom, and with telling my mom, my class teacher, I still remember her. It was Mrs. Standard or Mrs. Slabbit. Mrs. Slabbit was my Ines teacher. Mrs. Standard was my class teacher and my music teacher. So she would notice me a lot more. So her and Mrs. Slabbit, I think, had their own little meeting about me. And then they referred my mom to a occupational therapist, to Annalise. And I think she passed away a couple of years back. May her soul rest in peace. But that lady helped me regain my concentration. So when I was 11 years old in grade 6 to 12 years old in grade 7, because I only turned 13 in grade 8, she helped me bring back my concentration. So this lady, obviously, in the backup meetings, when we used to go see her in the beginning stages of me seeing her every Friday, she would ask my mom, what do you think are the contributing factors to this child's low attention span? Because it's not normal for her age. Well, it's quite normal for her age, but hers is a bit severe. My mom wrote down, because I still have these documents, guys. Hold on, I need to find them. There it is. I found it. Please look. It says Annalise Christiansen, right? Christiansen, yeah. And then it says my name, right? At that time, I was it says Mapule Wamgelwe Mkweli, which is inaccurate, but okay. Then it says date of birth 1998 February 26, age 11 years 6 months and 19 days. School, Maranatha. Those of you who know, they know. Those of you who know that I used to go to Maranatha. Then it says teacher, Mrs. Standard, referred by Mrs. Slabbit, one of Muki's teachers. Okay. And then reasons for referral, shortened attention span. Muki is also very playful in the class. Date of evaluation, 2009, September 15th. Let's get into it. Okay, now getting into it, I just want the part that says that I was now diagnosed with ADHD. They called it ADHD, but for me, I think it was a dysregulated nervous system, honey, and trauma in the home that was causing me to be super stressed and to not focus in class and to use school time as my escape, because that was the only time I was away from the dysfunction of the house that I was living in. And when my mother was obviously asked what she thinks the reason was, it says here the relationship in the family were described as healthy. The lies of your heifers. It says here that she has irregular contact with her father. Relationships in the family were described as healthy. No emotional stresses were mentioned that could influence Smookie's performance. This is what it says right here. This is my report from the occupational therapist that I used to see when I was 11 years old. So my mother lied and she made it seem like that it's the lack of me having my dad present enough that was causing all these turbulences in my attention span, because this was picking up, it was showing in my behavior at home. And like I mentioned, I think I was acting like that at school. I was being playful at school and being a child at school because that was the only place I could get to finally be a kid and be me, because at home I was not allowed to be that, and it was very emotionally chaotic at home. And then she went ahead and she lied also to the occupational therapist, talking about that the environment at home is healthy. It was not healthy at all. It was not healthy at all. I love that my teachers picked this up, that she has a very short attention span, and her as an occupational therapist, she knew because she studied this. So she knew that child psychology, there's probably something wrong that is happening at home or in this child's life that is causing her to act out when she's at school, or to act in a way that she's not supposed to act when she's at school, which was being playful when she should be serious and focused on her studies. Glad that I still have this report, Mama. I don't even know how it landed with me. I think she was throwing documents away and I grabbed this and then I put it aside along with my birth certificate and other documents that I deemed as important to me. And I flew with this shit to China, bitch. I made it in life. I got all my important documents. Ain't nobody gonna tell no fabrications about my life story. I have the proof. I got the papers to show that I'm infected. Okay? But anyway, back to what I was saying about the mother wound. Now I can reckon that sharing the story with you can now imagine the tons of things and effects that it has had in my life and in my adult life, the things that I had to face, which was the need for validation from other people, the self-doubt, the fearing to make mistakes because I was always punished for them. So I was scared to always make my own decisions for myself. So hence I would always go outside to seek validation from other people, or to always ask for advice from other people, because I could not trust myself enough to make my own decisions, because I was conditioned that I make mistakes, and when I make mistakes, I get punished for them. Hard. Yeah, it's a lot. It's really a lot. But I'm so happy that I moved away from all of that, because as we speak, I am 2 years no contact with my mother. It's about to be 3 years now in December this year. But I am 2.5 years no contact with my mother. The last time I tried was the last time I was trying, because that was it. I said, I'm going to give it one last try. And the response that I was met with made me realize that it's been like this my whole life. And I'm tired of it. I was 25. Actually, I was 24. Yes, sorry. I was 24 and I realized that I was tired of it. And this is not the life that I want to keep on living, because also this is a family generational thing. It happened in their childhood with their mom and her siblings. And now I was seeing that how this could play out for me when I have children, the type of grandmother she would be to my children and versus my sister's children, and how my children would then feel. So I was like, no, this pain ends with me. For my future kids, the children I don't have yet, but the children I will have, will never for one fucking second have to walk a day in my shoes, will never for 1 second have to live the life that I lived, questioning themselves, needing validation from other people, not trusting themselves, and feeling like they have to work for everything in life, including their own grandmother's love. It was a fuck no from me. It was a fuck no. So I decided then, when I was met with the last rejection from her, that this is it. No longer shall you reject me anymore. I take away your power to constantly reject me by removing myself from your life. You no longer have to worry about me as your daughter. This life be hard, but I can make it without you. This life is hella hard, but trust me, sweetie, I don't need you. You've shown me that I don't need you. You've shown me that I can live without a mother in this life. And you know what? It's going to be hard, but it's harder with having a mother like you in it already. So I think it will be better. And to be quite honest, the worst times of my life was when I was still in contact with my mom. Those were the worst times of my life. Life has still lifed after that, but life has never been as bad as it was when I was still in contact with my mother, talking with to my mother, and constantly just trying to prove my worth to my mother. When I still had her in my life, yeah, she was pretty fucked up. But now I'm doing way much better for myself. I must say, I have healed. I've seen a professional about these issues, and I've worked on them from the moment I landed in China. A month after I settled into China when I moved, and then I settled in around October 2023. That's when I started seeing a therapist and I started having sessions about this. I explained my whole childhood dynamic, and we healed through each and every sector and chapter and section of my life that needed to be touched, that needed for me to go through it, that needed for me to reevaluate and understand why things were happening a certain way, and then choose better for myself. Because this was also spilling into every point of my life, my relationships, my money, my self-worth. Because I had a very low sense of self-worth, I was accepting bullshit in relationships. I was accepting bullshit in friendships. I was accepting bullshit at work when it came to money too. Because I didn't feel like I was worth it. I didn't feel like I was deserving. I always felt like I had to work extra hard, even just for the bare minimum, for crumbs. Do you understand? So when that shit changed, when I finally healed, fully healed my wound, because even my first job in China, it was a nice breakthrough to break away from living in South Africa and to move to another country and to just start afresh. It was a good move, but it was a very hectic work environment. I had to work like a dog. I had to work like a dog, and for less money than I make now. Now I'm in a better situation. I'm at a school, a real school. I'm not at a training center. I'm at a school. I make more money. The children are very pleasant. I have school holidays. I'm on a 2-month summer vacation right now, and I'm getting paid for it. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's just better. I have more time to myself now, more time to focus on my dreams now. I know now that I deserve better, even with relationships, even with friendships. I'm no longer friends with people that make me feel like I have to work for their validation and their love as my friends and their support as my friends. I left that shit in the dumpster, the same dumpster I left my trauma at when I was working through it. With relationships, I no longer go for people and males or men or people in general that make me feel like I have to work for their love. I have to work for their attention. I have to constantly shout at them or beg for the breadcrumbs, for the bare minimum. I no longer deal with shit like that anymore because I worked through my childhood trauma. I worked through my mother wound, and it's still there, yes, but now it's a scar and it hurts less. So there are still things that I still work through continuously, consciously, but it's not as bad as it was anymore. So my life before cutting off my mother, very, very different from my life after cutting off my mom. And if maybe you are watching this and listening to this podcast right now and you're thinking, you've been contemplating whether or not to go no contact with your abusive family or your abusive mom, please just know that I'm living proof that it gets better when you walk away from the people and things that make you feel like shit. It gets really better. You grow more you grow more respect for yourself. Your self-respect gets stronger because now you honor yourself and you honor your boundaries and you create boundaries for yourself as well, where people are not allowed to cross specific boundaries. And if they do, you allow yourself to walk away from relationships with such people, and your self-respect grows stronger. You put yourself out of harm's way emotionally. So this is your sign. If you were looking for it, this is your sign. When you walk away from that, when you decide to go no contact and you truly solely focus on your healing and living your life, and you also choose to work with a professional, trust me, you're gonna be okay. Okay? Clock it. Anyway, that does bring us to the end of today's episode, guys. Before I just keep rambling and going on and on, thank you so much for watching. I do want to let everybody know that there's going to be a new segment. This is just the first episode, so I'm letting people know now before I release any other episodes that I am going to have a segment that is going to be called The Mommy Issue. So this is the Mommy Issues podcast. There's going to be a segment called The Mommy Issue. And that is going to be a segment where you guys can either write to me on my DMs. You know where to find me on TikTok or on Instagram, but most preferably, please, TikTok. Or you can just send me an email. I will leave my email address on the description box, but I think it's better to just DM me on TikTok or on Instagram if you have me as a friend on Instagram, and then you DM me your story or your mommy issue. You can tell me what the problem is between you and your mom's relationship right now, and then you can basically a story where you are seeking advice or asking for advice, and then in that segment, I'm going to come and read that mommy issue on that segment of this podcast, but anonymously. So you don't have to worry about whether or not people are going to know who you are. It's just going to be an anonymous mommy issue segment where I read your problem and then I can shed my light on it. And then other people can also comment down below any advice, solicited advice that they have for the person that, for anonymous, who has given us their mommy issue to read on the podcast. But yeah, that is it from me, Muki M, and I'm so grateful, I'm so thankful to everybody who watched this episode. Until next time, take care of your inner child. She deserves it.